G'day, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another crazy dose of EV and net zero insanity in MGUY EV news for Sunday the 19th of January 2025. If you like this channel, please be sure to follow me on the usual socials, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed so you never miss another video. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. So the first story today really just goes to show how bad the EV market is tanking here in Australia, because the number of people who were thinking of buying an EV has actually more than halved in just over 2 years. So people have been asked, are you going to buy an EV? What do you think about buying an EV? And it was previously 40% in June 2022, and now it's 18%, as this article says. EV buyer intention halves. Car sales survey shows 18% of intenders pick EVs, down from 40% in June 2022. So not only is the amount not growing, it's going backwards rapidly. Electric vehicle consideration has again dropped significantly for Australian motorists, with the latest car sales EV consumer survey report confirming that hybrid vehicles are the emerging choice alongside petrol. When asked to predict the car respondents would be driving in 2035, nearly half said they would be driving a petrol vehicle, 27%, or a hybrid vehicle, 22%, in 10 years. Only 18% of respondents believe they will be driving an EV by 2030, a steep decline from 40% in a June 2022 survey. The survey also showed that price remains a key barrier to selecting an EV as the next car. Car Sales Data Services Director Ross Booth said the price issue was further highlighted, with 2/3 of EV considerers saying they'd be more likely to buy an EV if there was a $3,000 government incentive, Mr. Booth said. The good news is that we've already seen a drop in new EV prices since 2021. The price of petrol vehicles has risen by 20%, really, while EV prices have decreased by 9%, a drop of more than $3,000 on average. Competition in the EV market is also increasing, and with up to 12 new Chinese car brands set to enter the country, stay tuned for a story on that, many of which will focus on EVs, prices will likely drop further in the upcoming years, he said. Well, that's all very optimistic, but the reality is that people still don't want EVs. It's as simple as that. They're inconvenient, impractical, hard to live with, expensive. They depreciate catastrophically. People don't want them, and I don't know how long it's going to take for the government to work this out. Another similar story here. Porsche, obviously they're going very heavily onto electric powertrains, which is absolutely insane for a brand like Porsche to even be thinking of converting some of their most epic models like the Cayman and the Boxster as EV only models. It's just insane, literally insane. And you can see what's happening here because people are rushing out to buy the combustion versions of these cars before they get canned. People want them so badly that they're literally rushing out to buy them before they're cancelled. Porsche Taycan global sales plummeted in 2024. Demand for the EV halved last year, but the fun gas cars flourished. Gee, I wonder why. Porsche's global sales results for 2024 are officially out, and they're a mixed bag. Total deliveries dropped by 3% to 310,718 units, but the fun cars powered by combustion engines were up. In addition, the Cayenne flourished last year, so much so that it ended the year in first place. The Panamera and Macan fell, although not nearly as hard as the Taycan. The performance EVs last 12 months were awful, with sales plummeting by 49%. Only 20,836 Taycans were delivered to customers last year. Porsche blames the model's mid-cycle facelift, which usually slows things down. Well, that's being optimistic on a grand scale. In addition, the company admits the ramp-up of electric mobility is generally proceeding more slowly than planned. Understatement of the week. In other words, they were overly optimistic about the rise of EVs. Consequently, the German luxury brand has already admitted it might put gas engines in cars originally intended as EVs. How ironic is that? When they're supposed to be making more EVs, they're now having to look at ways to put petrol engines into cars that were originally designed to be just electric powertrains. Unbelievable. Porsche's other electric car, the second generation Macan, nearly matched Taycan sales. The zero-emission crossover registered 18,278 sales, even though deliveries only started at the end of September. The EV is off to a strong start, but has some huge shoes to fill. Despite being axed from Europe because of a new cybersecurity regulation, the gas-fueled Macan still racked up 64,517 sales. Yeah, I think it's an absolute disaster for Porsche to be pushing this electric transition so hard. People buy Porsches because of the engines. It's like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, any of these supercar, classic, sports car manufacturers. People don't want electric sports cars. They might want an electric car just to go to the shops and back. But quite frankly, an electric Cayman, seriously, or an electric Boxster, it's just heresy. And they're finding out the hard way. And another interesting article from The Telegraph, just kind of summing up all this disaster in the EV market. European electric car market suffers devastating collapse after tax breaks scrapped. Yes, as long as people were getting free money from the government to buy these things, yeah, they'd probably do it. They'd buy them on a lease, so the lease company would take the hit on depreciation. And if they got a few $1,000s from the government, then they might think, yeah, well, I'll give it a go. But now, once the tax breaks go and the incentives and subsidies are gone, then the market just, the bottom falls out of it. Falling electric vehicle EV sales in Germany dealt a devastating blow to the European market last year, as Chinese car makers powered ahead of rivals in the West. Stay tuned for a story on that, by the way. The number of EVs sold across Europe fell by 3% to 3 million during 2024, according to data from analysis firm Rowmotion. This came after the withdrawal of government tax breaks triggered a collapse in sales across Germany. The drop in Europe compared to a 40% surge in China, where 11 million EVs were purchased. Sales across North America also rose 9% to 1.8 million. Yeah, but let's see what happens in 2025, shall we? In the US, when the Trump administration cuts all the subsidies from EVs and winds back the net zero nonsense. Charles Lester of Rowmotion warned that although the global market for EVs had become bigger, regional disparities have also grown. He said, "What is clear is that government carrots and sticks are working." Okay. Answers in the comments, please, if you can understand that comment. Mr. Lester said growth in the US could largely be attributed to consumer subsidies. Yes, such as those handed out to buyers under Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. At the same time, he attributed greater electric car uptake in the UK to the controversial zero-emission vehicle ZEV mandate, which required at least 22% of car makers' sales to be electric in 2024. Well, there's a couple of things you can say there. Firstly, most of the people buying EVs are fleets and corporates. They're not the public. They're not the general Joe public. They don't want them. It's fleets and corporates that are buying these cars. And the ZEV mandate in the UK, well, let's see what happens this year, because what they've done in a very short-term attempt to get around this mandate is that they've been registering cars like fictionally without selling them, just registering them, keeping them on the lot. All these little tricks that they're using to try and get their EV sales up to the 22%. But of course, when you do that, then you end up even further behind for the next year, because next year's target is 28%. Not just like 1% more, 23% or whatever. It's 28%, 6% more than last year. 2025 will be a fascinating year for the EV market. With Trump in the White House, I think things are going to go south very fast. And coming back to Chinese cars, yeah, well, look, I mean, we know if you've been following this channel, you know that, Chinese EVs are spying machines. Any EV is a spying machine. They have internet connections. They send all sorts of data, GPS, camera data, audio streams back to the servers. I mean, it's literally driving around in a mobile phone that's listening all the time. And this is exactly what's going to happen in Australia because, we're importing, or we're going to import, a bunch of new Chinese EVs. And I mean, why would you? Don't buy one. If you're in Australia, for God's sake, for your own privacy and security, don't buy one. Car expert warns Australia being flooded with Chinese electric vehicles which may be controlled directly from China. Yes, of course, it's not just one way. They're not just not listening. They can actually send stuff into your car. Who knows what they can do? They could just simply brick it at will. A motoring expert has warned of the security risks imposed by a surge of Chinese electric vehicles into Australia, which may be controlled or updated in some way directly from China. I'm sure they will be. Senior motoring journalist Paul Gover has raised concerns about the security risks associated with the influx of Chinese electric vehicles into Australia. The US government moved recently to crack down on cars containing Chinese and Russian technology amid security fears, announcing software restrictions would take effect from the 2027 model year cars, with imports of hardware taking effect in 2030. The ban targets vehicles equipped with cameras, microphones, GPS tracking, and internet connectivity, which can be used to exploit data. As I just said, Chinese-made electric vehicles have been dominating electric sales in Australia, driven largely by strong production abilities and Australia's free trade agreement. Brands like MG and Chery are seen more frequently on Australian roads than ever before, especially since the latter's successful return to the Australian market in 2023 after being pulled in 2011. One of Australia's leading motoring journalists has suggested the Australian government is unlikely to intervene. Well, this government is unlikely to intervene. Perhaps a future coalition government under Peter Dutton, God please, might do something to stop this invasion of spying devices from China. As the success of electric vehicles aligns with their goal of reaching their net zero emissions by 2050. Again, I hope that Dutton will can that stupid net zero goal the first day he gets into office. Canberra is really happy because most of these cars that are coming in are electric, and that suits their electric agenda. They're not so much concerned about whether there's a security risk, Mr. Gover said. No, they're not. What they love is the fact that it's hitting Australians or luring people into getting into electric cars. Well, what a conflict of interest that would be. Yes, too true. As always, links to these articles are in the description. Go and check them out. Go and read the whole thing. I just provide a very quick overview of these articles, but go and read the whole thing at the links in the description. Another article here about a wind farm where one of the turbines has broken. As I said in a previous video, solar panels and wind turbines, they may in the short term create renewable power, but they themselves are certainly not renewable. Solar panels are an absolute nightmare to recycle. Turbine blades can barely be recycled. They just bury them in big holes in the ground, and they're completely dependent on the weather. So if you get some high winds, it's likely to rip up solar panels, break turbine blades, as we see here. Hailstorm will put out an entire solar farm in a matter of minutes. Turbine blade break under investigation at Australia's biggest wind farm. Investigations are underway at the 923 megawatt McIntyre wind farm in southwestern Queensland following a turbine blade break at the huge project in late December. The incident at what is Australia's largest operating wind farm happened less than 3 months after the project sent first power to the grid, oh my God, from its site in the Southern Downs outside Warwick. The 162 turbine Acciona Energy and Arc Energy project has connected 27 wind turbines to the grid by early October, with another 27 due to be exporting energy by Christmas. Oh dear, what an absolutely terrible waste of money these things are. It's rated at 923 megawatts, which is, it's not an insignificant amount of generating capacity, but how often will it be operating at that capacity? Maybe 20% of the time. It will be well under that for the majority, and literally zero for a lot of the time as well. It's just an absolute criminal waste of money. So in the UK, we have a bus exploding into flames because diesel buses always just randomly, spontaneously burst into flames, don't they? Southend Short Street Arriva bus explodes into flames. A bus exploded into flames, filling the air with thick black smoke. The single-decker Arriva bus, which was out of service and had no passengers, burst into flames around 7:53 p.m. on Short Street. Firefighters closed off part of the road and extinguished the blaze, recorded as accidental. Southend resident Carly Bristow saw the smoke while walking home. She said, "I could see the smoke from Travis Perkins. The air was thick with smoke and the fire smelled fishy in the air from the corner of Malden Road and Milton Street. A man from the corner shop on Milton Street was putting his shutters down and asked if I knew what the fire was. The bus started popping before there was a loud bang, an explosion which made us jump. Flames were then visible underneath the back end of the bus." Well, very interesting there. I would be interested to hear from anybody who might know if this is a hybrid bus. It clearly has an engine in the back. From some of the photos, you can see that. This one here, you can see that it's got an engine in the back, so it might be a hybrid. Odd place for it to burn at the top of the bus there. See in the middle? Why would it burn there with that amount of acrid smoke coming out of it? I'm perfectly prepared to be corrected if this is purely a diesel bus, but it looks very much like it might be a hybrid. But let me know in the comments or email me, simon@mguy.tv. I'm genuinely curious to know. Diesel buses don't normally spontaneously combust like this. So it would be interesting to know. I can't read the registration number on the plate at the back. Otherwise, I'd be able to tell immediately if it was a hybrid. So Canoo has been teetering on the brink of bankruptcy for what seems like an eternity, and it's finally fallen off the edge. This company, I think I did a video on it previously. They make these little silly, stupid-looking vans. It actually looks better upside down. Another one bites dust as Canoo files for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. In an official announcement released at 8:15 p.m. last night, Walmart-backed electric van company Canoo filed a voluntary petition for relief under Chapter 7 of the US Bankruptcy Code and will cease operations immediately because there's no demand for these things. It's as simple as that. Nobody wants the friggin' things. Despite some early signs of promise with pilot programs at the US Postal Service, US Army, and even a highly publicized collaboration with NASA, the electric van company either failed to find a place in the market, failed to get enough vehicles produced to meet demand, or just failed to deliver in general. Regardless, the Chapter 7 filing seems to be the end of the road for Canoo. "We would like to thank the company's employees for their dedication and hard work," said Tony Aquila, Canoo CEO and one of the company's largest investors. "We know that you believed in our company as we did. We are truly blah, blah, blah. As a result of the Chapter 7 filing, Canoo will cease operations effective immediately." Ah, dear. Rumours fueled by outspoken former employees of Canoo began circling late last year, with furloughed employees urging Oklahoma state leaders to hold the electric vehicle company accountable after it shuttered the Oklahoma production line that had received more than $100 million in state incentives. Isn't it great when you start an EV company, they just throw money at you? I wish you could do that with other businesses. I mean, you could just get 100 million chucked at you. People have to struggle to start businesses. It's hard. And yet here we go. We have an EV van company that just gets $100 million in state incentives. It's criminal. Absolutely criminal. And now it's all gone up in smoke. So in the UK, BT, which I believe I think it used to be British, it used to be known as British Telecom, BT. They had this crazy idea of converting roadside broadband cabinets that aren't being used anymore into chargers. And let's just read the headline to see how well that went. BT axes EV charger scheme after installing just one, count them, one out of 60,000. Telecoms company hoped to convert roadside cabinets into charge points, but will now shut down its sole installation. Excellent stuff. BT has scrapped a plan to turn roadside green cabinets into electric car chargers after only managing to install one. I really shouldn't laugh because this is pretty tragic, but it is hilarious. The British Telecoms company had spied a chance to use the existing electricity connections to the cabinets, which usually house telephone and broadband internet equipment, to quickly install chargers. However, it will now shut down its sole charge point in East Lothian, Scotland, according to the Fast Charger Charging newsletter. Well, without reading the rest of this article, there's one problem I can see immediately, and that is the supply of electricity to power some broadband equipment ain't going to be anywhere near the amount of power required to charge an EV. I can tell you that for a start. So every single electricity connection to these boxes would have to be upgraded. There's no way they would be able to power, a bit of electronics doesn't take that much power, but a EV charger, BT said in 2023 that as many as 60,000 cabinets could work as car chargers out of 90,000 in total. The project could have contributed significantly to the 300,000 public chargers the UK government is aiming to install to cope with the growth in the number of electric vehicles on British roads. The number of public chargers in the UK is growing rapidly every year, says The Guardian, hopefully. Companies installed a record 19,600 in 2024, with total numbers up a third compared with 2023. Well, a third, it sounds a lot, but when it's a tiny number to start with, it's not that impressive. However, the rate of growth slowed amid delays to government funding and a tougher financial environment for charge point operators. Companies raising funds for the expensive rollout of chargers have been hit by higher interest rates as well as nervousness from investors as sales of electric cars have hit a plateau. They must be saying that through gritted teeth. Yeah, anyway, stupid idea, canned. And here we go in Australia. We have the same kind of issue here, where power pole fast charger rollout will benefit the monopoly, be anti-competitive. Just before we go on, I just want to show you this ridiculous graph that The Driven has on its website here. Every single page has this stupid graph. 400 ppm goes back to 1000 AD. I don't know where this comes from. Why did it drop in 15? This is just random, like they just made that up. But let's go back a few million years and see it go up to 8,000 ppm. Oh, that would be a bit, that wouldn't be so good for the message, would it? So we just go back to 1,000. A plan to speed up the rollout of electric vehicle chargers in Australia has hit a speed bump, with a leading charging provider slamming the proposal as anti-competitive. I love it when they fight together. It's brilliant. EV Network's chief executive Chris Mills said on Monday energy distributors were asking governments for special rules to install hundreds of car chargers at pace, which would create an uneven playing field. His comments came after Energy Networks Australia released a report on a proposal to allow energy network providers to install car chargers on power poles. The plan could see as many as 40 EV chargers installed by the companies every week if laws allowed it, the study said, with the finding welcomed by Ausgrid as a way to meet consumer demand. Mr. Mills said the plan would give energy networks special treatment compared to other charging operators. Yes, it would. I guess it would, because, the other competing charging operators would have to buy the electricity from the networks, whereas if you just add it onto a power pole, it's just up there. You just connect it. If they wanted to do this as a purely commercial venture, I'm as happy as anybody for them to do it, but they want to do it with special rules that would be incredibly destructive for the industry. This is what happens when you try and force an industry to develop rather than just letting it grow via market forces. People fight, the playing field is not level, and this is the kind of fight you get. So one of the things that's happening in the UK is that the extraordinarily vast reserves of natural gas underneath the North Sea have basically been shut down thanks to net zero. We have all this fuel that could power the UK for centuries, and it's just stuck in the ground. And this is all part of what net zero is about. It's about impoverishing people, making life harder, making life more expensive, all to placate the climate gods. And now businesses in Scotland are starting to actually kick up a bit of a fuss about this. Scottish government should give full-throated support to North Sea oil and gas. Yes, it should. The Scottish government has been urged to end its presumption against new oil and gas in the North Sea and give its full-throated support to the industry. Holyrood announced in 2023 that its default stance would be against new drilling and extraction as it aims to meet climate targets. However, the Aberdeen and Grampian Chamber of Commerce, AGCC, has urged ministers instead to adopt a policy in favour of energy security alongside a transition to net zero. Well, I can't disagree with that. I mean, yes, it's great to aim towards some kind of emissions reduction at some point in the future when it makes sense. But energy security is more important than net zero. That's the bottom line, isn't it, really? Energy security trumps net zero. It has to, every single time. Chamber Chief Executive Russell Borthwick made a plea to First Minister John Swinney to switch to a stance of support for domestic oil and gas production. Well, whether it will happen or not, I do not know. But it certainly should, because the UK is heading down the gurgler, as they say. And finally, there's a sad story, a really sad story, but at the same time, it speaks volumes. This is a guy who has a Tesla and a Porsche 911 ST, and he decides to, well, I'll let you watch. Unplugs the Tesla, moves it out of the way, and escapes in the 911. Absolutely the right choice, because in 5 years' time, a Tesla will be worth bugger all. And that 911 will be a classic for decades and decades to come. And so when push comes to shove, even though people might drive a Tesla, it's the Porsche combustion car, the classic, that they keep. All right, that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Bye for now.